Hi everyone, welcome to another episode, actually a bonus episode of Divided Films, the podcast where we talk about movies that audiences and critics do not agree on. So, we've kind of wrapped up our first season.
I've enjoyed it. This has been a great, for our first time doing a podcast.
We are noobs to the podcast game. But I feel like we're kind of getting the hang of it as we go along.
Well, we'd like to thank you all for supporting us, and that's why we decided, we love doing this so much, we decided to do this bonus episode in the first place.
Exactly. And I don't know, it's kind of like a drug. You just record yourself talking, you want to keep recording more. So we have decided to maybe change up the format a little bit for this sort of like epilogue episode or bonus episode. So in the past, we've talked about movies that audiences and critics don't agree on, and then at the end of those episodes, we decide to pick a side. Do we agree with the audiences or do we agree with the critics? Well, this time, we're going to talk about movies that we disagree with both audiences and critics. So these are movies where the audiences and critics are aligned, but we're not. We're kind of going against the grain, so...
That's what makes this bonus episode a special episode.
Yeah, exactly. On a very special episode of Divided Films. It gets very serious. So, the way it works is Keith and I have both brought to the table a movie that either audiences and critics both like that one of us hates, or the other way around, a movie that both audiences and critics dislike. Am I getting that right?
That's a tongue twister. It's a bit of a tongue twister.
You kind of get the idea. Whether both audiences and critics like it and one of us dislikes it, or the other way around. So we're going to talk about four movies.
We're going against the grain here.
Exactly. We're the ones divided. So what we're going to do is, for each movie brought to the table, Keith has brought 2 movies to the table. I'm bringing 2 movies to the table. We're going to try to convince each other to come to our side. So the movies I'm against, Keith might be in the majority, but I might try to sway him, and he's going to do the same for me.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have 10 minutes to make these arguments, and at the end of 10 minutes, we'll find out if we're successful in convincing that other person to come to the other side. So, let's have a clean fight here.
All right. Ding, ding.
Exactly. So the first movie we're going to talk about is the movie that Keith dislikes, but both audiences and critics like.
They really like this, and I'm disappointed.
If we're gonna do this, we gotta do it now! You ready to swim?
I'm ready.
Punch it. Tell me this is gonna work. I believe in you. Come on, it's gonna be fun.
Star Trek Into Darkness.
Released in 2013, directed by
J.J. Abrams.
Of course, starring the returning cast from the 2009 Star Trek movie, Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto and so forth. So, real quick, before we start the timer, this movie has an 84% approval from critics and 89% approval from audiences, and the critics' consensus is, on Rotten Tomatoes, visually spectacular and suitably action-packed. Star Trek Into Darkness is a rock-solid installment in the venerable sci-fi franchise, even if it's not as fresh as its predecessor. So, Keith, I will start the timer, and you can make your arguments. And go!
All right. I'm not speaking as like a Star Trek fan. Like I do like Star Trek. I've seen episodes from both the original and the Next Generation. I went in with low expectations to see the 2009 Star Trek that J.J. Abrams directed. I really enjoyed it.
I did too. A lot of people did.
And I know Star Trek fans did not enjoy it. They thought it was a distortion of Gene Roddenberry's vision, but they happened to like the third one, which I thought was fine. But we're talking about the second one,
yes,
where I feel like this movie thinks I'm dumb, or is treating me like I'm dumb.
Oh, wow.
The title, I hate this movie.
Star Trek Into Darkness.
No. You know what?
Get it? Into Darkness?
Well, the Star Trek most of the movies Star Trek: The Return. I would have if this movie had a colon in it. It would have. I would have given it like maybe a bump up in my book.
Okay.
Because Star Trek Into Darkness is so stupid of a title.
By the way,
it makes sense with the colon.
Do they go into darkness though?
Benedict Cumberbatch wears a bunch of black.
Yeah. Like, what is the darkness that they're going into?
But this movie, and movies around this time, okay, let's get into Benedict Cumberbatch.
Okay, yeah.
He's a fantastic actor, a fantastic villain. I actually don't mind that. If you love the cast from the 2009, the cast is all together.
I think the cast definitely works, and I think everyone knew Benedict Cumberbatch was going to be Khan. Maybe that's a marketing thing where they revealed the twist.
He didn't need to be Khan, though.
I feel like the movie was like treating it like a twist that, it's Khan, because he had a different name for the first half of the movie. But we all knew he was Khan, right? Going into it, didn't we all know that?
Do you want your villain to be named John Harrison? The year is like
what a memorable name.
The year is 2149. You want your villain to be named John Harrison. I of all the Wrath of Khan, I remember seeing that when I first started getting into kind of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And what's great about Wrath of Khan is it kind of sells you. It's kind of like a Shakespearean back and forth chess game. It's not a big action-packed movie. It's only like 2 settings.
There's a lot of really good lines, and there's like a very famous monologue from the original actor who plays Khan, right? I mean, I feel like it's not like sorry, I feel like I speak a little fast, but isn't that actor a very seasoned actor? The original Khan. He popped
up as not like he wasn't dressed in his garb. He popped up in an episode in like one of the episodes.
Gotcha.
And then he went away and he became. It kind of follows the plot of this one. Like he wants to get back to he's a genetically engineered superhuman. But I would say the plot of this is his plot kind of makes sense. Like
I get his motivation, and there's a couple twists in this movie where you also have that high-ranking Starfleet commander, whatever his position was, who betrays them.
Who just makes a bigger... Like, how do you defeat defeat the starship? Make a bigger one.
It's basically the Enterprise times 10.
Which fucks up Sam... it just got into so dumb action.
But that's the thing. Khan is out for blood, so he... Not only does he destroy Starfleet, he probably kills several thousand people when he crashes into San Francisco. So he is, like, out for blood, and I think... They're trying to emphasize Khan is bad. He is a bad guy, and he does really bad things. So they had to, up to that point, he hadn't really done anything that was a super standout, super villain. You kind of feel bad
for him. Like, he wants to get back to his people.
And he kind of kills what I would argue is the real main villain, which is that...
RoboCop.
Yeah, RoboCop. Yeah, right. He's the real bad guy. So they kind of had to have him do this, like, crazy terrorist act as the thing to be like, he is... bad, because they even had that scene with the original Spock where he's like he's the most dangerous adversary we've ever had.
Okay, since I only have that scene alone, I love the way Leonard Nimoy was used in the first one. I think it was just a nice passing of the torch without overdoing it. It worked with the plot, and it kind of got Chris Pine's Kirk to where he needs to be as a captain. And even at the end of that movie, he's like, you can only use me once. Leave me alone.
Yeah, but they bring him back.
I'm old now. Do not it'll mess up with the time thing. And in just like a quick scene, this had to be like I bet this was like a reshoot of like, we don't know how to do this. Like, how do we know we have to defeat Khan?
Exactly.
And then they call up their like lifeline and
phone a friend.
They call up their phone a friend. And Leonard Nimoy Spock should have been like, leave me alone.
It's more like phone yourself. Okay, well, how about this?
And here's how you defeat Khan. He's the worst. He's like, you just tickle him under the arm and he's good.
Now, this is tough because I am not as familiar with a lot of the original Star Trek stuff, a lot of the franchises from years past. So, the audience reaction has to be a mix of fans who really know their stuff, what they think, and then people who don't know as much, so maybe they're judging it at a lower bar, like they don't know what to expect, and Star Trek fans have a higher standard. And it seemed to kind of cater more towards the Star Trek fan base, kind of reversing the story of the original Wrath of Khan. Like, oh, this is what you would have done when they reversed the roles of Spock and
Kirk.
And Kirk. Okay, I hope I don't get chewed out for forgetting Captain Kirk's name. But you know what I mean? They're trying to be a little clever. Like, oh, they switched roles this time. Because remember, it's an alternate universe. So, oh, I did what you would have done. Because you did do it in another timeline.
To speak to both of the, like, trying to appease the fan, like, regular people and the Star Trek people. To the Star Trek people, it's just like, I don't know. It's a cashing in on this movie. Like, they do the con, they do the needs they do the needs of the many. Make your own thing.
Was it even warranted?
Did he need to be Khan?
Did that Khan shouting? That was definitely something for the old fans.
For an unemotional person.
Yeah, Khan.
Spock is I hated the dating. Like, they turned Aurora into like this. This girlfriend. That was her plot. This whole.
Yeah, she was just upset at her boyfriend. Really.
Like, they interrupting a mission. Like, excuse me, Captain, we need to hash out this. Like, you don't do this during. I'm like.
Well, let me just say I do like this movie, and for your chance to maybe address in these last couple minutes the things that maybe I like to try to knock that down. I do think it's exciting, and there's good action, and it looks really great. You get that classic J.J. Abrams lens flare. I don't know if you're a fan of that. And in terms of the overall tone of the movie, I feel like this movie and this whole franchise, they're crowd pleasers. They don't do anything that's too challenging or too daring. Like, they kind of kill off Kirk at the end, but then they bring him back. And
with super blood.
What is super blood anyway? So it's crowd pleasing. The humor is light. The action is intense just enough.
The same writers of that also wrote The Amazing Spider-Man. So they like using super blood as a plot device.
Whatever that is, super blood.
No name, by the way, just super blood.
So what do you think of the tone? Do you not like the tone either? I know you said you feel like this movie's kind of patronizing you in a way.
Okay, J.J. Abrams is a great I do agree that it is visually spectacular and suitably action-packed. I just feel like it's this movie came out in 2013. Force Awakens came out in 2015. I remember the first time watching this movie going like, wow, this reminds me a lot of Star Wars. And then this is before he was announced that he was going to be the director. And then he was like, he was quickly, J.J. Abrams going to be the director of Force Awakens. And I'm like, I bet this was a demo reel for Star Wars. I bet he knew what he had to do.
Oh, interesting.
Like, there's some shots, like when Simon Pegg is doing like his own thing. There's some shots, I think they're on Pluto or Neptune or something like that. And I'm like, this is very Star Wars-esque. The music even feels that way.
Oh, interesting.
And I feel like everyone just got like, you know what? We're going to serve this crowd. We're just going to bring out the classics. We're not going to, like, we have some cool moments. Like, I thought when they were shooting from ship to ship and they have to make that, like...
Yeah, that was a cool scene. Like, there's some good set pieces.
There's some... J.J. Abrams knows set pieces, but the story is so... I think when you pull back those aspects, it's dumb and it's so...
It's a story.
It assumes you're gonna like it because it thinks you're stupid.
I agree. I think there's some story aspects that I've seen before. Like, why did he blow up that one building? Because he knew we'd all gather in this room. Hasn't that happened in like a bunch of other action movies where it's like, oh, what a weird move that he would do this one thing because he knew it would lead to this other thing. I feel like I've seen that in at least a few other movies.
Just the last point, the one shot that I think sums up this movie as you'll like this stupid.
Oh, I'm sorry, Keith. We're out of time. But one last argument. The bell has rung, but just one last argument.
The one shot that I think sums up this whole movie as you'll clap at anything stupid is I think Alice Eve is such an attractive woman, and she's a good actress.
Oh, the daughter of the guy?
The daughter of RoboCop. I think she's so beautiful, but I felt like when she was talking with Kirk, and she's like, can you turn around? And they do they do the whole full body shot of her just standing. She's like, hello, can you turn around? And I'm just like, that's a shot. The audience goes, woo! Like, I know what I came here for. I'm just like, she's beautiful, but I'm just like this. I'm being completely parented to with the quotes, with the Star Trek, with the con, with everything.
That was a shot that was just kind of
pointless. And Bill Hader's in this movie.
Who is he?
This is just a fun fact. I'm watching this movie. I'm listening to this movie, and he is the voice of the giant ship, a RoboCop ship. Like, excuse me, the USS Vengeance.
Again,
and I'm listening to this.
Oh, I'm listening to
this, going like, wait a minute, I know this voice.
Why get Bill Hader to do that?
Well, wasn't he also BB-8 too? I guess they're friends.
I have no idea about that. Well, just to connect, I guess, Star Trek into Star Wars.
But that's how I feel. This movie should not be at 80. This movie should at least be 54%.
That's your percentage is going to be 54%. That's interesting. So I think you make some interesting arguments. Sure, the story maybe doesn't stand out as well, but it is covered up with really great effects and action. It's, to me, like a 70. I think I don't regret seeing it. I wasn't personally feel like I was talked down to. And it's fine. And being someone who's not that familiar with the other Star Trek franchises, the bar is kind of lower for me. So
I think you just lowered. At least I lowered your score.
You did. You knocked me down from the 84, that's the critics, and the 89, that's the audiences. And I think what you really got me thinking this movie over was the fact that the plot is kind of a recycled plot. I'll give you that. But, I think that I just have fun watching this movie, and maybe I don't really expect more than I should from this movie. So my bar is lower, admittedly, but I'm at the 70%. So you didn't totally sway me, but you did knock me down a little bit. So, minor success there.
Minor success.
Ding, ding, ding. So, let's actually move into the movie. I know we went over in order, but I think I might switch it up a little bit.
Switch it up.
So, let's move on to the movie that I dislike, that audiences and critics like.
From the director of Kill Bill and Django Unchained comes 7 strangers and one.
Shut your mouth.
Good way to get yourself dead.
They got a secret.
One of y'all ain't who they say they is.
But they didn't count.
Do you know who he is?
On him.
Starting to see pictures, ain't you?
He'll kill everybody in here.
Shoot him, stab him, burn him.
I never bring him in alive.
Never.
Never, ever.
The Hateful Eight, rated R, December 31st.
Get him, audiences.
All right, well, like a little thing. Do we have the fun fact sheet here about the Hateful Eight?
I didn't make a big, huge one. It just...
Oh, here it is down here. Okay. So, right before I start the timer, Hateful Eight, 2015 release, directed by Tarantino, his 8th movie, and the percentages here on Rotten Tomatoes, 74% approval from critics, 76% approval from audiences, and the consensus. The Hateful Eight offers another well-aimed round from Quentin Tarantino's signature blend of action, humor, and over-the-top violence, and all while demonstrating an even stronger grip on his filmmaking craft. Okay, so that is the consensus, and I will now start the 10 minutes. So, yes, this movie offers another blend of Tarantino violence, action, humor, but it's been done before. Tarantino does not make that many movies, and I was very disappointed that, 1, he made another Western, and 2, you're seeing all the familiar tropes. There's also a lot of violence, there's a lot of just sequences that add up to someone being killed. It's just dialogue, someone shot and killed, repeat, so you whittle down the cast. I just found that there was not much to it other than that. It was way too long for me. Actually, I've seen it only once before, and trying to watch it now, I couldn't even get through the whole thing. It's 3 hours long, and it's just a bunch of guys sitting in a cabin shooting each other. I'm also a little disturbed by how they treat the Jennifer Jason Leigh character, because they are, like, abusing her the whole movie. Like, less than 10 minutes in, Kurt Russell just elbows her in the nose, and am I supposed to enjoy that? I find that a little disturbing. There's also, again, I know this is like the Civil War era, like post-Civil War, but you also get, what you get in a lot of Tarantino movies, which is a lot of N-words thrown around. And I just feel like this is a movie where it looks really nice, especially leading up to the cabin, but there's nothing about this that I haven't seen him do before. And for an auteur director, like any other auteur director, it's very disappointing to see them recycle material. And I think he really wants to do this on a personal level, but it got to the point of self-indulgence. That is my argument. And how do you feel about all that, Keith?
Well, what would the score be? Just so I can gauge.
My score for this would be a 45.
Oh, wow.
Good performances, but it's all over the top. Like, everything about this is so over the top. You get, again, the same cast you always see. Samuel L. Jackson. You bring back Kurt Russell, who you worked with before. Michael Madsen, Tim Roth. And a lot of the
First time working with Walton Goggins, who I thought, like, he has to be the standout.
Oh,
like,
he was good. There are good performances, but the dialogue is also heightened that I find it tedious. Like, all these pleasantries and all these kind of stylized dialogue. I was like, all right already. Like, get on with it. I got very impatient with this movie.
Now, I'll agree with you that, like, 20 minutes could have been cut from this, even, like, a 40-minute. Like,
yes.
And I know that they made like a mini series. They made it longer. They made 4-hour-long episodes on Netflix.
Oh.
Now I'm kind of a little bit shocked because he is the two main influences for this movie are Reservoir Dogs, his previous work.
I found this similar.
And The Thing.
I definitely got a lot of Thing.
You love The Thing. We love The Thing.
I love The Thing, and yes, again, Kurt Russell. You're in an isolated environment, wintertime. You don't know who to trust. Paranoia.
Same music that was cut from The Thing.
I did recognize that, and the composer's the same. So I did like the music, even though I was annoyed that they stole some of it from The Thing. It was just
unused, but it's definitely Thing-ish.
The same themes, though.
It's the same theme. Oh, heavily.
Yeah. So, but actually, kind of.
Is that why
it's not original?
Is that why, like, oh, I've seen these two movies before. I don't need to see the child of this movie.
Right. I appreciate that Tarantino is doing a respectful nod to The Thing and kind of maybe going back to his roots a little bit with Reservoir Dogs. But that movie had so much more realism and grit. This is so stylized in a way that I'm totally detached from it. He's done westerns before. He did Django Unchained, which is, I think, a way more superior movie that had a story. There's no real story with this. There's a plot twist at the end that you find out some of the characters' real motivations. But for the most part, it's just a bunch of guys sitting around talking, and once in a while they kill one another.
You're not the first person that I've read, or at least told me that, like, Hateful Eight wasn't my favorite, and I can understand that. It's basically Tarantino having a fun time writing, and just like, hey, like his dialogue pops.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of I like westerns. I like this kind of like a different take on westerns. I do like this movie.
Okay.
I do like this movie. I don't think you're gonna lower my score because when I watched it again, you do pick up on things that maybe Channing Tatum was miscast. He's trying. It
was so random.
It's so random
at the end to have him just pop out of the floor.
Oh,
by the way, and this is, I don't know, I'm a stickler for certain things. This movie is called The Hateful Eight. I count 9 characters plus 10, or one more to get you 10 if you count Channing Tatum. Who doesn't count as one of the Hateful Eight?
Are you counting the driver?
I guess the driver OB doesn't count as one of the Hateful Eight. Yeah, I never counted. But does Bob the Mexican count as one of the Hateful Eight?
Yeah, Bob was one of the...
Alright, fine. Again, it's just a stickler. I was confused a little bit. I'm like, Hateful Eight. There's more than 8 characters in this movie. So I don't know. Maybe that's a dumb kind of thing. But to me, this movie is very much concept. And when little things like that don't add up to this high concept, it kind of sours it for me.
Now, the abuse by... Like, I'm going to try to find the right words here.
It's unpleasant.
It's unpleasant.
They hang her at the end like it's this victorious moment, and it was, to me, very off-putting. Like, why am I watching this? I wish I wasn't watching it at that point.
It's hard to find... Like, the character you like is Sam Jackson. But he's also a bastard. Like, all of them are on the sliding scale. Even Kurt Russell, who's just like... The bounty hunters are the good guys, he capture the bad guys, but he is, hitting... They're all on a sliding scale of
he's, like, abusing this woman, and... Yes, Samuel L. Jackson you align with him just because, he's
He's the
black.
smartest guy in the room.
He's the smartest guy in the room, but also, you sympathize because he's a black guy who's surrounded by a bunch of racists. So, of course, you, sympathize with him.
Would you have, let's say, hey, JJ, I'm bringing you to see a play. And you saw, would you have enjoyed this if it was a play?
Perhaps this could be better as a play. I mean, I can imagine a stage version of this.
Yes. Even more so than, I always thought Reservoir Dogs would make a good play if done right, but this one even more so. Tarantino writes good dialogue, and I get all the criticisms. It's not his best work.
No.
We binged, Kill Bill, Inglourious, Django.
Exactly.
I loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think this was... this is kind of just I wanted to make this movie. I wanted just to do the 10 Little Indians, the Agatha Christie idea of 10 Little Indians getting whittled down to one murder mystery whodunit type. And
yeah, the whodunit thing, but I don't know. I feel like I wanted so much more from Tarantino that I was not getting from this. And 3 hours long, when there's not much going on, I don't mind a 3 hour film. In fact, I would think I consider Kill Bill to be one movie.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that from start to finish. But there's so much more going on in that movie. I think I still have 2 minutes left. But
either you're along for the ride or you're not. I would say and you kind of there's 5 acts in this film.
Oh,
and the 2 first acts are before Winnie's, if I'm not mistaken.
Minis,
yeah.
Winnie. So that's another thing. This is, I don't know, the 3rd or 4th Tarantino film where it's the same title card of Chapter 1, this thing.
Yeah.
And, Chapter 2. We've seen that also before, too. I just a little disappointed. He, in his 90s catalog, seemed to really be more daring and challenging the status quo of movies. And this movie is emblematic of just him recreating movies.
Oh, there's definitely 2 stages to Tarantino's
Yes.
career. And that's not a fault. That's just
I enjoy a lot of his 2000s and 2010 catalog. I love Inglourious Basterds. I think that might be his best work, although not my personal
might be
favorite.
his masterpiece.
Yeah, exactly. He always kind of sticks in a line that is his own voice. Or, Django's great. I even really get a kick out of Death Proof, even though that's such a smaller scale movie.
I'll agree with you. The one point that you didn't bring up, and I might add to your...
Please do.
I don't like it when Tarantino, in his latter half, or even in Pulp Fiction, him acting or trying to,
Oh, yeah.
It's he's not even in Hateful Eight, except when he's narrating.
Oh, that's right.
He should not have had that.
But he narrated for,
someone poisoned the watering hole. He should have either
he
cut
narrated one scene.
Get Harvey Keitel to do it.
Oh, right.
I don't
Samuel L. Jackson, who's the main character.
Samuel Jackson was the narrator in Inglourious Basterds. Why not get Harvey Keitel to be... I just don't he did it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And that was just in a quick cut. We were here to here. I get that. Quentin, I love you, but you're a better director than you are an actor.
All right. Well, my time is up. So, like I said, my score is 45. What is your score for this movie? It's 74%.
You didn't lower it, but I get the criticisms. I personally do like this movie from a writing and just the movies that it's doing.
It seems more experimental.
I give it an 80. I even give it higher.
Oh, man, you're killing me, Keith.
I give it an 80.
All right. Well, I did my best, and, sometimes we just don't see eye to eye.
I think you might win on the next one, though.
Okay, that's fair. So, we're going to jump back, though, to one of your picks.
Ooh.
And so now we're switching it up. The first 2 movies we talked about were movies audiences and critics liked that we didn't like. Now it's time for movies that we liked that audiences and critics didn't like.
It's a film where a girl appears to be murdered.
She had no name
I need information. I thought you might be able to help.
until he uncovered the truth.
The film is real.
Now,
I'm trying to understand.
how far will he go
You dance with the devil don't change. The devil changes you.
in the name of justice?
There's no one left to finish this but me.
Academy Award winner Nicolas Cage. 8mm, rated R.
Directed by Joel Schumacher and starring Nicolas Cage and Joaquin Phoenix. So, again, just a quick little factoid about this movie. Released 1999. The critics' consensus is its sadistic violence is unappealing and is lacking in suspense and mystery. That is a very short consensus. 22% approval from critics, 52% approval from audiences. So, like, just 1 second.
People listen to this. I want them to get over the hump to get this into the 60s.
Okay, well, here we go. 10 minutes starts now.
Okay. I think people... This movie is not trying to be anything more than it tries to be. It's a good mystery of just this guy's journey into this underbelly.
Right.
And maybe it's ahead of its... I'll give it credit where credit's due. Maybe it's a little bit ahead of its time in its subject matter, but I would compare it to Seven. Seven came out 95, I believe.
Yes.
This is like definitely writing like that kind of dark coattail.
Seem to have the same color palette.
It's and Joel Schumacher. He got like this is
2 years after Batman and Robin.
This is the movie right after Batman and Robin. Look, I'm happy those movies. I know their movies are awful. I'm happy they exist.
Right. Out of an ironic point of view,
we love them. We all kind of quote those movies.
This obviously is a big step up.
But Joel Schumacher has done good work. I would say like Phone Booth, Lost Boys.
I really like Phone Booth.
Joel Schumacher is a good director in my eyes.
That could be a play, Phone Booth.
And you got a good You got a tempered performance by Nick Cage.
I think Nick Cage is very good in this. You know, he tends to be a little wild sometimes, even in that era of his career. Like 98 was Face Off, and he was like a madman in that movie. I feel like he was very controlled in this movie.
You got a young Joaquin.
Well, I think he was controlled for the first 2/3.
Oh yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix, I thought was an interesting character. Another great performance from him. I feel like he is a chameleon a lot of the times, and I was totally believing this character.
And I'm gonna say whoever saw this movie definitely said like I think this guy would make a great mobster. Because I think this had a hand in getting James Gandolfini, Tony Soprano. This is right before, like, they must have filmed, like, 1999, 2000.
Well, Sopranos premiered the same year.
Yeah, so, and James Gandolfini is kind of doing a Tony Soprano...
Well, he's like a sleazy...
He's a sleazy...
He's sleazy pornographer guy who kind of has a very similar way of
violent
talking to people.
tendencies and stuff like that.
He has a temper. But he has a moment in this movie that really disturbs me when he tongues the gun that Nick Cage is holding at him. That really bothered me. Yeah, that's ingrained in my brain. I wish I hadn't seen that.
Reading about it it goes into dark subject matter, which there's a movie that came out years ago, written by the guy who did Taxi Driver, Paul Schrader, called Hardcore, and it's about George C. Scott trying to find his daughter, who's in a porn movie, and it goes into the seedy underbelly.
Oh, okay, that's
how I kind of feel about this movie. It just goes into... It's a very well-written mystery.
Well, I'll give you this. I'm very engaged for the mystery, which is like the first 2/3 of this movie, and I knew, as much as I'm enjoying this, a lot of how I will ultimately feel about this movie is going to depend on what the reveal is. What is the answer to this mystery? And there can only be so many answers, but I was disappointed
the mystery?
by the answer to this mystery. When the rich person, like that assistant of the rich person, the lawyer, when he shows up at the end, and it's like this thing where the people who hired him were basically the people responsible. That's a twist I've also seen before, and I thought that was a little obvious. Even when they were setting up that first scene, when the rich woman is setting him on this mission and the lawyer is there, I'm like, this lawyer looks really sleazy. Is he involved in this? I hope not.
Well, he only pops up in that little bit. Like, it's like, why does this character even need to be there? Mm-hmm. I still don't think that warrants a 22%.
No, I think 22 is way too low.
They do say there's 2 lines in this movie that I think are so good that kind of just like elevates the script just a little bit above a mystery. It's the line the lawyer said, like, Nick Cage is like, why did he do this?
Oh, because he can?
Because he can. That in its days of, like, Epstein and all this other stuff,
yeah.
I think that, like...
Oh, this movie, I guess, it really is ahead of its time, though.
And the last line when he goes against, when, like, he's fighting the machine,
Yeah.
And it turns out to be just like, he's like, what did you expect? A monster?
Mm.
I remember seeing that for the first time going like, dang. Like, I think I was expecting a monster. I remember seeing this when I was, like, senior. My dad was watching this. I joined him. I was probably like a junior, senior, maybe going to college. And that line just really stood out to me.
Yeah, you know, I thought that it was kind of interesting they made this really scary guy for most of the movie be unmasked to be just a normal kind
Like a
of
mama's
guy.
boy type stuff.
Yeah, you would never guess this guy is like this sadistic, like pornography, like S&M kind of guy. However, it did come back to me again at the end. I did like the last scene when Nick Cage gets a letter from this girl, her mother.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I think we were the only people who ever truly cared about her. And I kind of liked. I wish maybe the focus was a little bit more about who this girl was, as opposed to just what happened to her. I do like diving into this underbelly of, like, the black market sort of world of porn and what sort of horrible things lurk there. I think that's interesting to pull back that curtain.
Yeah.
And I imagine something maybe Joel Schumacher has wanted to do for a long time. However, I think that I was confused when Nick Cage is going on this revenge binge towards the very end when he is just going crazy and killing all these people who are responsible, because I'm like, well, what is his attachment to this girl besides just being hired to find out by this old woman, like, what happened to her? Yes, he did talk to her mom, but I was just kind of confused why he was so, like, compelled to sacrifice even his own family to get revenge for this girl. He was willing to leave his family to avenge this girl who he has no connection to. And that kind of threw me off. I thought the movie then went from a very intriguing mystery to maybe a kind of familiar revenge thriller. And I wish it didn't go in that territory.
Okay, if I had to give this movie a score, and I think I would give it like a good 68. Like, and I know, and the only reason I picked this movie.
You know, I have to say, in the past, you've given low scores, but said it's a good low score. You've said for some movies a good 45, a good 68. Like, it's not good if it's low, okay?
But it's a tomato nonetheless. Like, tomato is watchable.
Yeah.
And I think this movie is watchable.
Very much
I
so.
understand why he goes on that rampage, and they do kind of point it out at the end when he's standing over his daughter's, like, he has a daughter, and
sure.
I think there's that connection. It could have been done better. Believe me, Catherine Keener is completely, this is during the time of being John Malkovich, and she's completely, like, wife character.
Right,
Don't smoke wife character.
Yeah, she's just kind of annoyed with him, and then she's basically out of the movie for pretty much almost half
Like, the movie kind of stalls whenever she has to call.
Right.
Like, I understand that. And the only reason when we decided to do this idea was I was shocked at how low this movie was. So this worked, but also I think Joaquin Phoenix, I was getting into a Joaquin Phoenix type move, and I'm like, you know what? I know he was a child actor, but let's see where he was a teenager. And I do remember the first time I saw it, how awful his death scene was.
Oh, that was pretty
And
brutal.
Peter Stormare is, like, perfect for this kind of movie.
I love that Peter Stormare is in this. His
with
heyday,
a crossbow.
His heyday, Peter Stormare, is like the mid to late 90s, playing these bizarre, violent,
Russian,
quirky, like
Eastern
weird,
European accented
vaguely
characters.
ethnic characters. I get a kick out of that. I think he fit perfectly into this movie. And then with Joaquin Phoenix's character, he definitely seemed like a character who was destined to die. I was like thinking when this character started to get involved in the plot more, I did think he's probably not going to make it.
But I kind of felt for, like, he actually they added enough, like, character that I was hurt that he died.
Now this movie also being a mystery harkens to, like, noir, right? I mean, it's like
and I'm a big noir guy.
Nick Cage is a private investigator, and he is getting in too deep with the case that he's involved in. That's like a classic sort of noir structure, and you know, again, all those movies, they really depend on the ending. The best endings make it like some of the best movies of all time. You know, Chinatown, Maltese Falcon. But this, I really wish they come up with something more clever. So for me, I would give this movie definitely higher than 22. I would give it a 59. I'm gonna give it.
You're not even gonna give it. It's 1 point away from a tomato.
That's the point. That's the
Can
point.
Can it be a good 59 though? Can it be a good 59?
It's a so-so 59. Okay, I can't give it the good 59.
The good 59,
which does not exist. But I would give it a 59 because yes, it is as good as a movie with a disappointing ending is gonna be. Everything leading up to that ending or that third act is intriguing, really great. I'm on board. Performances, mood, tone, everything is great. It's just where it goes, I was very disappointed by, and that's the challenge with the mystery. You gotta have a good answer, and this one didn't have.
I'm happy I was able to raise it though. But
right, 22,
it's 1 point away.
22 is like really cutting this movie short.
Oh, and Roger Ebert agreed with me as well. He gave it 3 out of 4.
Well, you know what? It's always nice when the fat man's on your side. Okay, so we're going to move on to our final movie of this little experiment we're doing here. The movie that I like, that audiences and critics do not like.
There's only one new comedy out on DVD. We're family now. That will make you feel better. About your own family.
You're terrifying him.
Meet the Fockers. Own it today on DVD.
Fucker out.
A little factoid about this movie before I start the countdown. 2004 release, directed by Jay Roach, who isn't that the same guy as Austin Powers?
He's done Austin Powers. He's doing.
He's a comedic director.
He does a lot of. He's doing that Bombshell movie.
Okay.
He does a lot of political like Trumbo now.
Yeah, he has a lot of like comedies under his belt.
Did the first Meet the Parents? I think.
I believe so too.
Yeah.
So, bring back the cast of Meet the Parents: Ben Stiller, Rob De Niro, Gwyneth Paltrow's mom. I don't.
Blythe Danner.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Mom.
mom, and then also adding to the cast for this sequel, Dustin Hoffman and
Barbra Streisand.
Barbra Streisand. I am just short of names today. So I will start the countdown. Oh, and then the scores. So this movie has a 39% approval from critics, a 58% approval from audiences, and the consensus is talented cast is wasted as the movie is content with recycling jokes from its predecessor, Meet the Parents. So here we go, 10 minutes starting now. I would say that this movie improves on Meet the Parents. I feel like what's frustrating about Meet the Parents is that you're almost supposed to root against Greg, like everything is at his expense, but it's so unjustified. I feel like in this movie, it gets turned around that Robert De Niro's character, Jack, who you should be kind of against in the first movie, but the movie doesn't want you to be, this time around, he does get his comeuppance. Everyone does kind of agree, no, Jack, you're being the jerk this time. And I think Dustin Hoffman and Barbra Streisand are really funny. I love seeing these two powerhouse actors, De Niro and Hoffman, like together in a movie. In a comedic movie, I feel like they have a lot of really funny interactions with each other. I just think, this is not maybe like the funniest movie of all time, but I think that there was more to it than its predecessor. So I prefer this one over Meet the Parents, I would say. I'm not giving this a huge thumbs up, but I'm surprised that the critics dislike this so much. I think it's funny. I don't think the cast is a wasted talent. I disagree with that a lot.
I agree with you that I think the addition of Dustin Hoffman and Barbara, I think they kind of steal the show.
Yeah.
I disagree with you that I think Meet the Parents is a classic, and we talked a lot about sequels. Mm-hmm. A lot of these episodes and a lot of the movies that we covered, kind of like their first movie were standalones, and they did so well that they.
Right. This is definitely that case.
And didn't need to get made. It doesn't matter because it got made. Mm-hmm. You didn't think this movie went into. There are some things that were funny, and then it just, I would say about the second act, it gets so goofy, like cartoonishly goofy.
When they introduce the
son,
the possible son who happens to look just like Ben Stiller, yeah, that is kind of an insane plot line. But I give props to the casting for finding an actor who looks just like, who is the Hispanic version of Ben Stiller. That was
when
amazing.
they do like the picture overlap, I'm like, they did a good job.
I was so impressed by that.
Also, it was nice to see Larry David's Shelley Berman. I had no idea, like he was the judge. He's like,
oh, that's right. Yes,
you've done so well for my sex life.
Yeah.
It was nice to see him.
Bango. Yeah,
bingo.
I thought there was some really. I get such a kick out of Dustin Hoffman in this movie too, because he is so committed to being this absolute train wreck of a character. Like the best moment for me with his character is when he's like dancing on the dance floor and he backs up into the buffet table and knocks it over. Like this guy can't go 5 minutes without ruining something. I thought that was great.
I think it was so easy for the writers of this movie to write comic scenes for them, and they like I even think the voicemail's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, I want chimichanga. Then you get the chimichanga.
Make a chimichanga.
If it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down.
Yeah.
I don't obey my own.
Yeah, see, this is...
there's some... Dustin Hoffman is a comedic force in this movie.
It's a quotable movie. Has a lot of rewatchability factors.
I also don't think it recycles... I read that.
They come up with new jokes.
They come up with new jokes.
Because you have new characters.
And it's like, I don't think it... I mean, the nurse thing, I think, is like...
Yeah, that's kind of recycled a
That's
little
2004, though. It's of the time, and we're like, blah, blah, blah.
But I'll say this, though. I think that it's funny that they made it more obvious how ridiculous the character Greg is going, like the lengths he's going to try to please the Jack character, because in the first movie, it's hard for me to say. I feel like it's funnier because you kind of more sympathizing with Greg in this movie, where at the last movie you're kind of laughing at his expense. I felt like Meet the Parents was a little mean-spirited. It's just a poor guy who has bad luck, and it's so cringy. This time around, Greg is even trying to justify Jack's like rubber boob, which I thought was such a funny set piece.
It's funny, but it's also like if Meet the Parents is so cynical, this goes into the complete opposite territory of like.
I like that territory.
No one like this is so cartoony.
Yeah.
That it like it's kind of like what happened to The Office. Like there's some bed of realism. And I like the fact that like, my dad's a former CIA and they're doing the lie detector, and then it goes into he has a secret compartment in his RV.
Yeah, that's right.
And then, like once Steve Carell left, like we're in cartoon land, and
okay.
We're like
in The Office. With
like
Steve
how
Carell.
How traumatized. I did like for all like the stuff with children. I did actually like the jokes with the kid. Like
I like the jokes with
I thought that was really funny.
I like when the kid gets sprayed with toilet water, because this kid actually I found this kid to be kind of annoying, but I think the movie it was on purpose that this is kind of this annoying kid who's like he's kind of cute but not really. And so when he gets sprayed with that toilet water from head to toe, I thought that was really funny. Like that was kind of satisfying.
I thought the editing in this movie was like you don't notice good editing, but you notice like
bad editing.
It was choppy, or at least like
really? I didn't think so.
Like every time like someone says something awkward, it would cut to like
there's
Bride Danner
There's tons of reaction shots in this movie when
tons of reaction shots, and it's kind of jarring. It was
particularly with
Robert
De Niro's character, because he's so judgy. Every single little thing that Greg's parents do, the Jack character has to kind of have this frowny face, like don't like that. But again, like you're kind of, I don't know, you're not supposed to really root for Jack this time around, which I liked. And I kind of like that he is forced to be in this house with these sex-crazed people.
Well, the dynamic of that is really like from start to finish. That Barbara Streisand helps them with their marriage. All you have to do is
think they gave all the characters something.
Well.
They even gave the actress again. What's her name? Blythe Danner. They even gave her character something to do, how she is jealous of the intimacy that Greg's parents have, and her attempts to like try to woo Jack fail for most of the movie. I thought that they gave everyone kind of something to do. And you still had the cringe humor of the first movie, but just done in different ways. Like that speech, when he is on Truth Serum giving that speech, that is a hard scene to watch.
But I remember in the theater laughing, and
it was great.
I remember even with
I like the
dinner scene. The dinner scene is definitely like that's
when he goes into the fondue. Oh, that was pretty.
When you're laughing and I know with cringe, if you're liking the cringe, if it's funny, like and there's that in this movie. This movie, when you're laughing, you're laughing.
I thought it was hilarious.
When you're not, you're not.
Well, to me, the biggest misfire is when they brought back in the credits the hidden camera stuff. I thought that wasn't really funny at all. I don't really, but credit stuff I try not to include in like the main part of the movie.
Yeah,
that's like saying, oh, I'm deducting points because the bloopers weren't funny.
Also, there's like having not seen this movie in years. You know, you see the opening credits and you're like, Tim Blake Nelson.
Oh yeah,
he's in this movie.
He was insane.
And then I'm like waiting for him, and then he plays the dumb cop from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Basically,
it's insane.
And he's funny, but it's like, wow, we're like,
put your hands on the vehicle. Like I like quoting that. That was a good scene. Look, he's got a rubber boobie. Like that. That's like so great.
Like but I was like, where is he? When does he pop up?
Oh, only in one scene.
Yeah.
Listen, at the end of the day, this is not one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. But if someone had to ask me, I've never seen Meet the Fockers. I don't know why someone would ask me if they should see Meet the Fockers. But if they did, I would say yes, because I think it's hilarious. I've watched it several times and enjoyed it ever since. I think the jokes stick, and the jokes, they're still funny. It's not a movie that feels outdated by any means.
Yeah, I wonder the people that gave this a negative score. They must really like. You can't like. It is a continuation.
Right.
Like it's not affecting. Yeah, it doesn't affect Meet the Parents in any way. It doesn't change.
I would say
it just goes a little cartoony for me.
Right,
but I still enjoyed it.
I would say the critics probably are on board with you. I think critics like more grounded comedies, and this one gets a little more screwball. And I'm surprised audiences didn't like it as much, or at least not enough to give it the 60% fresh approval rating, because I feel like a lot of people I've talked to all enjoy this movie. It's a pop culture movie, right? It's been referenced a bunch of times. It's been at least satirized. It's a movie that, like I said, people have heard of this movie.
Now, you don't like the third. I never saw the third one.
Never saw it, and I also don't know anyone who has.
Yeah, like I think that movie, like... They got lucky. I feel like they definitely got lucky with this movie. Could have either gone the opposite.
The casting.
Like the casting really helped. The jokes, or some of the jokes really worked.
One last line that I really enjoyed.
Like this movie did very well at the box office.
Oh yeah, it made a lot of money. Oh, and another line that I really enjoy is this is the fruit of your loins. Oh, say that again. This is the fruit of your loins.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the fruit of your loins. I don't know, little things like that really get to me. All right, so my time is up. My score for this movie would be a 70. I'd give this a 70 because it's funny and, doesn't stand out as one of the best comedies, but I'm glad I watched it.
59.
No, son of a bitch.
When I finished this movie, I did go, like, I enjoyed it. It's a flawed movie, but I did enjoy it. 64. I think I did settle on a 64.
All right, that's a fresh.
Yeah.
So that's a win for me.
I think we're tied.
Yeah. I think we each had one where we were able to sway the other, but then
we thought we were gonna argue like Gene and Roger Ebert. Like Gene, you didn't get the movie, Gene.
Yeah. You should be ashamed of yourself. Yeah, one can only dream to recreate that dynamic. So okay, guys. Well, those are our 4 movies we're divided on. If you agree with us or disagree with us, let us know. And hey, if you have any movie that you feel like you are on the outs, everyone loves and you hate it, or the other way around, let us know. Everyone has one, right?
Everyone has, like, it's not even a guilty pleasure. It's just like, I really enjoyed this movie.
Right. It's not like, I like this ironically. Some people really love a movie that everyone craps on, or they really, I think more commonly, I think everyone has that movie that they dislike that everyone else loves, and it's what I refer to as the English patient syndrome. If you recall Seinfeld, Elaine hated the English patient, and everyone loved it to the point where she was ostracized from her friends, and her boyfriend broke up with her. But I totally agree, because if you dislike something and everyone is like giving you a hard time, you double down.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? Like, F you. I hate it even more because you're giving me such a hard time about not liking it. So
people, I think, double down on whatever. Like,
yeah.
Hopefully we changed minds.
Yeah.
Hopefully we change minds, and
maybe that should be the.
I hope we do this again after like each. I really kind of like this.
This will be a recurring theme where we end our seasons with a little bonus episode
for you folks at home.
Yes. Okay, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in.
Happy New Year.
Yes, happy holidays, happy New Year. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next year.
I hope, we should record as soon as possible. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I would love to get back into it. So join us again next year, guys, for more Divided Films.